Yeah, I think first off, like I said there, it's a really prestigious, if not the most prestigious award for an assistant coach you can be mentioned for, up for, let alone become a finals for. But I think the only the only thing that is probably the most recognizable when you step back from that is understanding that it's not an individual award because of yourself. You know, it's a team deal and a team game, and I think more than anything, it was awesome. It was put on by an amazing group, huge opportunity, and more than anything, an opportunity to get our fork out there and spread the Sundevil love and hear the appreciation and I think respect that was earned by this team, by Coach Dillingham, by this community, by everyone who's taken a really big, giant step forward in leaning into a commitment here to be a real team, a real program. And it was only
What was it like the interaction?
one more time.
What were the interactions like with people? Like, what did they say to you about the season and about kind of what you guys accomplished?
Yeah, it was. I think I started the whole thing laughing about the fact I was the only offensive guy there, and everyone would say it's an offensive game, you know. And staring at 4 other defensive coordinators, many of which I already knew, and everyone there was, so excited about Sundevil football, about how to watch us all season, about how to root for us, how we treated our guys, how our guys treated each other, was very recognizable to those folks. There's a high IQ in that room about football. Their FBI and in regards to college football is really high, as we all can imagine, with the Royals family. And there was no shortage of excitement for ASU football all the way out there in Arkansas.
Do you sense the momentum kind of steamrolling into spring now, the momentum that you had from the end of the season?
Yeah, I think that's it's an obvious one in that regard. You know, there's a lot of things that I think guys are really excited about, having looked at it in hindsight. You know, and I think that's they're due that respect. They're due that. We're due that. Everyone who put the inconvenient commitment to make this thing push. Starting with Kenny and Graham and our president, I think it all goes to those people, and we do have the right to be excited about it, and we should. These guys did a hell of a job, and like I told the offense the other day in our first kind of meeting here as we got into kind of an OTA tile style deal, the first thing I mentioned to them was, you know, that's great, but you got to press reset, and the targets have changed. The membership and the ante to be in this program or to be on this offense, to what we're about to do has gone up. And so we got to make sure we hold ourselves accountable.
How meaningful is it to have another year to work with Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson and have that connection back?
You know, anytime you get a chance to have success with a young player and a young team, there's a lot that goes into that next season in regards to what you can continue to build on. That fires you up because you get some continuity, and I think that's probably one of the most under-talked things in our sport. You know, because everything's so flash in the pan, everything's right now. When in fact, it's more about when it goes good, how do you keep it together? And I think, you know, my hat's off, and again, I continue to give Kenny so many kudos and Graham so many kudos for their forward thinking early on in the middle of the season to do some of the things they did to keep some continuity. And Kenny continues to be forward thinking in that regard. I recognize that when we first started talking about what he saw about this program, because it's hard to do, and it's a learned trait to think forward when things are so bright and things are so fast in this world. And so to have guys returning, to get the respect they've earned, to take care of them, to take care of the staff, to keep that continuity in the gel. I heard Shaun Aguano the other day, so it's the first time he's had a coordinator here for the second year, and I don't know if Shaun's been here, 100 years, you know? Which is cool. I know, having been around, the value of having that continuity, including from coaches to players, and having especially a quarterback and leaders.
When you think about life changing Sunday, like the vibe when you walk around campus, what do you notice different than a year ago?
Candidly, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. You know, I've only been here a year. When I got here, I recognized we had a lot of work to do. I probably closed my eyes and shut my ears and just went to work. And now, as we've poured into it, it's been what we've made. You know, and that's from the ground up and in an organic way. What I can tell you from the people who've been here that that I've met and understanding, their excitement's been through the roof. I mean, there's a new pride in the way that you see people walking around or flying that flag. Or I moved into a new house in Arcadia, and my neighbors are honking the horn and yelling out the windows and coming across the street. And, everyone's fired up, and that's the way it should be. That's the beauty of being in a community that you'd hope, number one, your players and your staff and school can be part of, and number two, personally and then privately, your family can be part of it, because that means you chose the right place for your kids and your family to be around.
What's it like to have Trent Bourget on your offensive staff now as a coach?
It's awesome. Trent's got a ton of experience, as we all know. He's had a bunch of coordinators since he's been around. A real value to the room, and not only as a quarterback, not only to just our privately, but the whole offense and the whole program. He's been in a lot of locker rooms with a lot of guys, and I think he's got a great career as he steps into this, and I know he's got a lot of respect.
What do you think about the transfer portal guys that you added? Kanye, Jalen Moss, other receivers, Kamari Anderson.
Yeah, in the short time we've had a chance to see him, I think the biggest thing that sets out is the people. Because we're not in football truly yet. We're not on the field with Diron. We're not out there with the football yet. You're hoping you're recruiting talent, but more than anything, the characters what sets the floor, and all these guys that we brought in on both sides of the ball, specifically in offense, just because I've been around those guys a little more, are high character guys. High character, low ego, high outlook. And you can't ask for anything better than that. They've come to work, they're in here all the time, they're already studying, they're in here early, they're out of here late, they're hanging out, they're doing walkthroughs with each other, really diligent. And then as we start to see them in some movement skills with, in the weight room, and start to get out there a little bit, you get excited because you start to see some traits and intangibles that you're like, this is going to be fun.
How do you replace a guy like Cam for 2,700 yards of offense? How do you go about that looking at 25?
Right. That's a huge question, obviously, because I've done this a long time. So one of the things I like to do when you lose a really talented guy, when you lose who's got a bulk of your production, Keenan Allen, or you're losing whoever it may be, James Washington or Marcel Aiden, or you're losing a quarterback or a running back, big guys in your offense, Royce Freeman or whatever, is break down and try to look at where the production came from and try to then break that down. What's the irreplaceables? So, like an example, like when I went through all scat stuff after the season, there's a category of plays that he has that I call scat plays, and those are ones that are going to be really hard to replace. And those are the ones with balance, body control, like crazy plays, things that you're like, that's a scat play. That's a special play. Its own category, because I think you got to do it that way, because then I got to go into, okay, what are the plays made by the running back in the running back position that we ask them to do, that we're going to need to recruit you, that guys are going to be asked to do as a running back. And then you have that silo of plays. You're like, all right, we should be able to replace those plays, because that's the offense and that's the ask of the position. You do that then in run and pass, because I think in the running back category, in our offense, the guy's got to be an all down back. He's got, the thing about Scott, he's got many receiving yards in many regards that are potentially as important as his rushing yards in a lot of ways, because he can affect the field and the game in both phases. So then you go through the pass plays. Okay, where are there any scat plays and the pass plays? So you're like, all right, you got to have a guy who can catch the ball. So do we have some guys in the backfield? We're going to have to find some guys who can catch the ball and have dominant hands in the backfield to replace the yards with the pass game. And so I say that because I've got to look at that. I can't just go, there's 2,700 yards out the window. We got to recruit and find guys like Kanye or find guys like Man. Zip's got to step up. And I got to figure out which piece of the puzzle I can take those category plays and plug those guys in. And of the scat plays, there's a healthy amount of scat plays. That leads to the next thing. That leads to where do I take the bulk of production in the scat plays and hand them maybe not just to the back. I got to find 500 yards of scat plays that I figure won't go to the backfield, that might have to go to Kamari or JT or Shaman or a different personnel group, or where can I find that and divvy it up, is the way I look at it, to be able to be productive. And that's how I look at it. because I don't think it's fair to just go, here's 2,700 out, all right, throw out the baby with the bathwater, let's revisit the thing, because I don't think that's the reality.
But how much does year 2 of Sam also mitigate that challenge?
And mitigate in regards to potentially help.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
think.
exactly right, and increase and have an advantage, and that's a huge piece of it. Like, you're going to have more quarterback maturity, which may make up for a little bit of some scat production. Okay, cool, that's going to go into there. JT for 2 more games, which he missed. Okay, great. Sam for 1 game, which he missed. Scat missed 1 game. It's like you can find these pieces, and it's my job and our job to kind of figure out how I can plug those things in. And that's the fun part, because that's where you get back in the kitchen and you don't get comfortable. And I think comfort's the drug we can all, right now, you want to take, and you get your butt kicked. So you got to restart and chop it back up, get sous chefs back in there, and fix it up.
You guys set the bar pretty high last year, Coach, in terms of where you were offensively, with scoring and yardage and all the things you did offensively. How do you maintain that now going into year 2?
Well, I think we did a pretty good job of letting our guys and coaching staff and our players understand those are a product. That's a product of how we work. So let's use screens as an example. Really not a screen team 2 years ago, never run screens. And I came in, I'm a screen guy, we're going to screen. We screen every day. Every single day there's an E-to-D screen period. And we're going to do it because there's got to be some production on first and second down that I've got to find some value for. And a young quarterback with a young team with some weapons I didn't know if we could create. We'll end up being one of the top screen teams in the country. Every year you've got to find a new way to do that again, and there's got to be something in your tools shed where you got to say, how can I be productive, and how am I going to be top 15 or 17 in the country on third down? Well, how about being first and second, or top 10 in first and second down? And so we start with that. I don't mean to be long-winded about it, but I don't look at the end product, because that's a byproduct of how we run the ball, how we find explosive plays, how we reduce negative plays, where the explosives are, how do we take care of the ball, how do we make Sam creative on certain down distances to create the volume of explosive plays, first and second down efficiency, third down efficiency, red zone scoring, that then usually accumulates to a top 25 offense. That's kind of the goal. So that's the way we were kind of reverse engineering.
You sound optimistic about the challenge ball. You sound like you're ready.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
When you look at Sam, what's the next step for him?
The game's gonna slow down for him, which is gonna be awesome. I know that by having played it and coaching for so long. It's gonna be really fun, because what happens in your second year, it's almost like you downshift in your rig, and you're like, everything's a lot slower. So he's gonna have some things that we're gonna, because of that, we get to add a little more to his plate. Not much, because there's that fine line between playing fast and controlling what he does, and adding more and having him bogged down. So I got to find that sweet spot where he still plays fast and plays free. I think that having him in year 2, there's going to be some things that we'll be able to take advantage of that maybe Leaf did. And now with Ben at center, we can take that and mitigate some of that to Sam in regards to having a new center who's never done it. And so that offsets that a little bit. Being able to get you in a couple different looks where maybe if you look back on a course season, like, if we could have got to that, maybe we get to that this year. But his work ethic and his ability to lead this football team is going to be through the roof in year 2, because there's going to be so many things that he's going to feel more comfortable with. It'll be my job to be able to pull the reins back a little bit on a guy like that who wants to, he wants to go.
What kind of stuff does he do off the field to help his leadership?
Well, I mean, leadership's influence, right? I think more than anything, he's just spending time with people. I think the one thing that as a young quarterback you learn to do is you learn to communicate effectively with all the different walks of your locker room. And I think as a young guy who's such an alpha, a lot of times it's one weapon, it's one way. And I think as we all get older, we learn to communicate with people differently, because we take more time, we've got more patience, we've got more maturity. Our quarterbacks, more of an example than anyone in my business in the world, is I've got 125 guys from all over the country, different walks, different levels, some leaders, some followers, some in the middle, and that's okay. That's part of holding the platoon together. You learn to communicate on different levels with each one. Each one needs to hear it a different way potentially. And I think as you mature as a quarterback, you get really good at that.
Do you think do you think? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Do you think he takes on more of the alpha dog role, kind of like Cam had? Because Kenny's kind of talked about how Sam's had it, but he didn't have to do it because he had Cam last year. So do you see him kind of taking that leadership, intensity, alpha dog role?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, Sam is not short of any alpha. Let's first say that. I think the key to taking on some of what Scott's role, which is gone now, or Scott's leadership is making sure that whoever picks up that torch just does it in his own way, does it in their own way, their organic way themselves, because that's the key. And I think that's the key with our whole program is, I think if anybody comes in our program and says that we're not who we are, that they probably were not here when we were here. I think anything about from Kenny all the way on the top is our players and our coaches, and we're all who we are. And I think our players learn that, and they're able to lead in their own way. I think whoever picks the torch up for the loss and the gap of what Scott's gone, whether it's Sam, whether it's JT, whether it's Ben, whether it's Keyshawn, whoever it may be, as long as they do it in their way, it's going to be effective. You can't go and grab that torch and go, I'm going to be Scott. And that's the whole thing. And I think that's easy to do in our building because we allow guys to be themselves.
So what's challenge in spring?
Wanting more practices. The biggest challenge spring will be probably, there's a large influx of new guys, especially at wideout. It's a whole new roster at wideout. A lot of new guys who some played, a lot of them haven't played, which is nice. They've got a little bit of background as we assessed them and recruited. Part of them was where they played at and what they did. I think having a new center, replacing some of what Scott's done his production on offense. All of that's the challenge in spring to see how things fit together and how you continue to put the pieces to the puzzle. But I think we're going to do a really good job of focusing and keeping the main thing, and that's OTA, little walkthroughs right now, and then we go to 15 practice spring, and then we focus on that, and then we move into summer, and that's really the mainstay for me is making sure that our blinders are where our feet are.
And just back to Sam real quick.
Corner fire.
He came in last year as a relative on the wider scale. And obviously, he comes in now this year, best returning quarterbacks, the Heisman favorites going in. I mean, what's the balance and I guess the confidence that instills in somebody versus kind of the pitfalls and all right, the expectations of the as a program based on his
I mean, the having the humility to accept the accolades is going to be a huge piece. That focal point, ignoring the distractions that come with having that focus from the success from year 1 to year 2 being so volcanic in a way. I think I'm happy that we've got some experience and background in the room. I've been around a lot of places, so I think it's going to help me be able to ground them and do some stuff that really focuses them back on doing our job. You know, if you got somewhere by not having any experience and you got to that point, how do we get ourselves back to just learning in a facet that keeps us grounded? That's my job. That's our job, is to basically find out what we can do better. How do we get from point A to point B? We made a list of things in the off season between me and him. I'm like, all right, here's a couple things that we're going to try to really focus on. It pulls our attention, maybe back from the lights and all the stuff that happens, back from the noise and ignoring, starving the distractions and noise, back into like, let's hone our game in. And he's really so focused. He's such a self-starter and such a grinder that I don't think that's going to be too much stressful. But it is anticipated. We're ready for it. But I think it's going to be a healthy deal for him, you know, especially in marked year.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. You know, the competition. I look forward to it. You know, I just had that conversation with someone that, you know, it's the same feeling that you had. Who's going to be after Eno? Who's going to be after Rashad? Who's the next guy? And so I think that we have a room that can step up for that. And so we'll see how it goes. But he was special.
How rewarding is it for you to see what he did in his 2 years here and what he was like when you first had him and what he was like when he got here?
You know, I think that's the maturity part of it. I think he matured in all ways, not only, you know, from a physical standpoint that we all saw in spring, but more of a mental and a professionalism that he, you know, carried over from the previous year. I think that helped him more than anything else. And so just watching him grow and develop, I think that he became more of a complete back once he understood what the professional side looked like.
Is losing Cam a media topic? I mean, how often do you talk to your players from the
been to the Texas game until now?
You know, there's more fans than anything else that want to talk about it. Our guys just move on in the room and prepare like who's next. But you always get fans in the around town and the community that want to ask about him and how he is. But especially with the draft coming up in April and where is he going to go? I have no idea. But those conversations are always had.
Are they being had with you? How many
Yeah,
teams
they're-
have reached out to you?
You always do with the scouts, and then previous running backs coaches from different organizations contact me because a lot of them have coached in collegiate level and I've known before, and so those conversations are had. Yes.
So when you talk to scouts, what do they bring up the most? What's the question that they bring up to you most often?
More than the physical attributes, because I think they can see that on tape. Character, how does he prepare? How does he learn? All those things that they don't see on the field, all the background stuff. And so those are the more the conversations that we have.
Everything that he brings, what's the most difficult to report? The versatility, the toughness, what is it?
Whenever you look at the running back, I think it's the yards after contact, and things that, I thought the offensive line did an incredible job this year. We asked for 3-4 yards, and that's an efficient play. Now, efficient to Cam Skattebo is hit after 3 or 4, and then he goes 30. And so those are the things that, how do you make up those yards in this offense coming up, and who's going to replace those? And hopefully there's running backs that watched him, and that's the important part, is the yards after contact that we can't make up.
How much of a surprise was the 39.5-inch vertical?
That wasn't too much because what people don't understand about Cam, he's an incredible athlete. Like, if you go bowling, he can bowl. And if you go play pool, he can play pool. If you go play basketball, he can play basketball. And then he wants to try out for baseball. And so the athletic ability of him, it's not surprising. And he's so explosive. And so wasn't surprising to me. It could be for others, but I've just seen the background of it. So.
How was Kanye? What do you see in Udo?
I liked his downhill one-cut ability. Now I haven't seen him in full force working with me from the flexibility side and diversifying, catching the football out of the backfield. So I got to see that still. But I'm excited about his bigness, his toughness, especially from a mental standpoint. He's tough as nails now. So he's been 3 years at West Point, and so he had no reason not to be. So
Rubbing off on other guys, like West Point's
yeah, everything he does is professional, and he's a guy that sits back and processes well. So some people try to figure out, is he mad at me or not? And he's just listening the whole time, and I think that's from the training at West Point. But no, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table.
What do you think about the diversity that could be crazy? Like Kanye guy was bigger guy, Sim who's more of a speed guy, the league is like receiving the backfield shape all the guys.
Kind of when I go and recruit, I recruit to that too. It's hard to find a guy like Scat. I think that's generational, that he can do everything. And so if it's by committee or somebody that is going to take the bulk of it, I think that you have to diversify the room. Who's the Scat guy? Who's the power guy? Who's the third down back out of the backfield? So you try to hopefully get all those taken care of. But if you can find the one guy, then you're blessed. So.
What is the thing you maybe look at the most this offseason from spring trying to ready? It's going to be that guy that step up and be the number one.
It's the yards after contact, balance, who can catch the ball out of the backfield, because I think 70% of the offense comes through the running back, and so who is that person that can make up all of those yards, and that's 2,700 yards. And so how can we replace those, and who's going to be the guy? I just want to see from a mental standpoint who can rise to the occasion and who can stay at that, and so it's going to be a test for all of them.
He's a special young man, and it's awesome to see where he's at. And he's not here because of me. He went up and tried to resurrect his career playing for Coach Regal at Idaho State, and got in there, was still kind of rehabbing, but was kind of like a dual player coach. And he made such a strong impression on Charlie that when Charlie got hired here, he knew he wanted to bring him right away. So I tell Kenan all the time, I'm really proud of you, but everything that you've done, you've created for yourself. It has nothing to do with guys pulling favors or anything like that. He got his foot in the door, and he works his tail off, and that's why he's elevating, and that's why he'll continue to elevate in this profession, because he works hard and he does it the right way.
Look at just that vision of the staff and all the air and staff connections. Was there a moment during the offseason where the staff
guys to appreciate the vision being executed into
Yeah, I would actually say we started appreciating it during the season. Shaun, Charlie, and I have kind of built a special bond, and every time we would go on the road, if we had a later start on a road game, we would go get dinner the night before. Once the team meeting was done and the players were on their own for free time, we would slip away. And I think as the season started progressing, we just started having conversations like, man, this is really cool. And it's really special to see when you build a program the right way, you bring in good people that care about a place, and you recruit players that want to be here, and you see it come together. It was pretty unique. So we started having those conversations, not patting ourselves on the back or not crowning ourselves anything, because we knew there was a lot of work ahead, but just feeling in the moment like we are a part of something pretty special here. It obviously started turning the corner. We got through that Oklahoma State game. Like, man, it's got 6 wins, and we keep finding ways to win games, and there was just a special vibe around the team. And so, I think the three of us, having been around, winning programs for a while, you could feel that there was something unique and something special about the team.
Was there always that bond between the three of you, or did it take getting on the same coaching staff?
What's really neat is I think we all three had a mutual respect for each other. Charlie left Chaparral the year I took over at Saguaro, so we never competed against each other. And I was there when he was there under John Sanders, but we knew each other kind of from afar. And then obviously he came in and started recruiting our school when he was at Arizona and at Cal. We started really getting to know each other, and then Shaun, same thing. Shaun left Chandler when they created the Open Division, so we never really had to compete against each other, and so we kind of missed that. But Shaun and I had spent 1 year down in San Antonio together at the Army All-American game, and we both had players playing in it, and we got to just spend some time, hang out, go down to the Riverwalk and spend some time, kill some time together, and we really built a friendship too. And so when he got elevated here, under the previous staff, he recruited Saguaro and we started building a bond. But I think it was once we all came together and started spending more consistent time around each other that we all really connected. And I say it all the time, I don't use the term lightly, but they've become two of my best friends because we've walked a similar path. It's kind of funny. Charlie is 5 years ahead of Shaun. Shaun's 5 years ahead of me, and all of our paths have kind of been similar. And so it's really neat. It's been special for me. I've benefited greatly. I don't know how much they've benefited from me, but I've definitely benefited from them of walking the same path, having the experience. For me, especially my first year going into it, having some guys that I can lean on. But yeah, we have a unique bond, and regardless of where our futures go, I feel like the three of us will be connected and be very close, for the rest of our lives.
Like the way Albert gets off the ball, has a plethora of pass-rush moves. Just can't wait to see what he does with it when the lights go.
Coach, you have a lot of roster retention, specifically in the D-line and overall the entire team. How much easier does that make you knowing a lot of these guys and kind of how they go about business?
I don't know if it's any easier. I think it just gives you an opportunity to push them just a little bit more. Last year, we probably kind of filled each other out a little bit, and knowing how to press each other's buttons and try to get the best out of them. And, I think they know that we want the best out of them, so the stakes are a lot higher this year.
Or looking back at last year, it seems like the pass rush maybe didn't get the numbers that it necessarily wanted to. What were some of maybe the factors that you look back on film that maybe jump out, or some of the things that you can improve upon and head into this year?
I'm gonna be honest, I got one. I got to put them in a better situation to be able to do it. Two, we got to tackle people. When we get the opportunities when they come, we got to make the play. And I think we do a better job of that. I think we need to do a better job of playing off each other, communicating. And I think, with a veteran group this year, you have an opportunity to do that and do some other special things.
Who have you kind of seen throughout the offseason kind of maybe off the field step into one of those leadership roles?
I think everybody's kind of stepping up. I don't know if it's one guy or the other, but I'm just seeing guys talk and push each other better. Where we were in situations last year, guys were reluctant to, we don't call it calling each other out, but calling each other up, calling each other up to the standard. And I think everybody's doing a better job of that this year, holding each other accountable.
You have experience, with the NFL, with the upcoming draft. What qualities are you looking for, or do you see with players who transition from college to make it to, be pro?
Well, the biggest thing is, really being a pro, going about your day-to-day, as a pro, taking care of your bodies, eating the right things, showing up on time. That's just a pro mentality. The other thing is just a skill set, and that's going to vary from team to team from what they're looking for. But, I think we have a few guys that have that pro mindset, first of all, and definitely, continue to sharpen sharpen up their skill set so they have opportunity.
CJ made a big step up to an all-conference type of season last year. How can he build upon that and take his game to the next level?
Just the consistency. He started being very consistent about mid-season. Mid-season he was really hitting his stride. He's taking a leadership role. He's more of a quiet leader, but guys follow him. The next thing that we got to get, you mentioned a little bit earlier, just his pass rush. Transition to pass rush on first and second down. Him and Kakaka did a really good job in there, stopping the run. But the next step is being able to steal some early down sacks.
You hated Gardner, local guy, went to Oregon, transferred here. Does he replace Jeff Clark, and what do you think about just his skill set and what he brings?
Yeah, I think he steps in that role. He's going to give me a little more length in there too. A real long arm guy, but really quick twitch. Kind of quick twitch like Jeff was. Just bringing him up to speed. He's coming from a different system, so we got to get him up to speed with that because he was playing more on the edge. We're probably going to play him more inside. But I'm looking forward to what he brings to the table.
How do you feel just about the depth? You were able to overcome so many injuries last season. Should that even take a step forward this year? How much are coming back?
Depth is important. I mean, nowadays you got to be able to. I tell the guys, just honestly, if you're in the 2 deep, you're a starter. I mean, you're probably going to play close to equal amount of reps because basically whoever has a hot hand, that's who's going to be in the game. So depth is very important.
Kakaka obviously has been a pretty vocal guy, keeps things kind of loose. We called him multiplayer. What does he bring to that room kind of off the field, and kind of from leadership and just a tangible standpoint?
I mean, big time leadership. I mean, he really has no problem calling anybody up from any position, and we really appreciate that. Whether in a good or bad way, but either way, he gets their attention, and really appreciate that. He always brings juice and energy every day, and we need that. Not only in our room, but for the team. But he's done a really good job stepping into that role.
What have you just seen from this team bringing back so many players and a lot of expectations after kind of jumping the gun a little bit on maybe the timeline for this team? How important is it for them to kind of keep that same mentality that was able to get them through so many games last year?
Well, I think these guys are just hungry. I told them, we talked about this at the beginning of the season last year. Coach Dillingham hit on it too. The biggest thing, last year was, to work in a way, in a manner where you got respect. And when everything comes fast, once you have success, it's not only gaining the success, but how you handle it. They got a little bit of success. A lot of people pat them on the back, tell them how great they are. You got to focus on what's important now, and I think that's the biggest thing right now is being able to let go of the distractions, get right back to the grind, and understand our standard and just stay on pace to get done what we need to get done.
Have you kind of seen that from the guys in the past 2 months, just their hunger and their wanting to get back out on the field?
It's incredible watching them in the weight room. Coach Joe is pushing them to the brink right now, and they're taking every last bit of it and pushing each other, even further than they've gone. Just way further than one last year.
Time to kind of reflect on it all and get ready for the next one. How are your thoughts on the room right now, keeping a lot of guys and kind of retooling for this upcoming season?
Yeah, having that continuity is a great feeling. As a coach going into spring ball, some of these guys, it's their third time in this system, their third, spring in this system. So, pretty optimistic, just from a cornerback standpoint, just have a lot of continuity in the room. We got one or two new guys in the fold now, so just kind of getting those guys, trained and attracted.
How's that been getting new guys on the track so far, getting people up to speed and kind of figuring out how your new group's going to kind of gel together?
Yeah, it's a lot smoother transition than when we first got here because we can kind of pinpoint the caliber of student athletes, the type of humans that we want in that room. So I feel like with Nyland Green and with Joseph Smith, who actually was committed to us for almost 2 years, it's a lot of familiarity in that room. Those guys aren't unfamiliar with our process. And for Nyland, for example, he's a guy that's, been in, this is his third Division I, Power 5, Power 4 program. So this is a guy that's, has a lot of experience. We lost one guy, last year, so to bring a guy that has that type of experience kind of elevates the room. Because, ideally, we should have a senior in this program. So that was the thought process. bringing Malcolm on board.
What's the biggest strides you've seen Keith have from where he is today to where he first got here?
I mean, he's a unbelievable kid. You know, he holds himself to a high standard. He's a big critic of himself. You know, he's just very detailed. You know, we've had a lot of time to kind of dive into, you know, some self-scout of last year, some things we did good, some things we didn't do so good at. So, you know, with Keith going back and diving into the film from this year, he just got more technical. He was very sound towards the latter end of the season. And, you know, with Javen and Keith kind of under the squad rack, they had to man a lot of snaps, you know, this previous season. So, you know, just having those guys self-critique themselves. Keith is real big on just being detailed for the amount of snaps that he's out there. He's out there 80 snaps versus 50 snaps. He doesn't want to give things up from a technical standpoint.
What's that next step for Keith?
The next step for Keith Abney is really just from a production standpoint. This is a guy that knows our system in and out. You know, he just has to put it all out on the field. You know, he aspires to be an all-conference caliber player. You know, and that's kind of been the message between myself and D-Walk is there's no room for error if that is your goals and that's what you want to achieve. So, you know, it's really just going to come down to production. It's going to come down to whether or not you're winning your targets. And, you know, that happens on Saturdays.
What do you think about the recruiting class you guys put together this offseason out of high school and transfer? Do you feel like you got a couple guys that none of those schools were looking at as much as might
Yeah,
be a
absolutely.
steal?
I feel like college football is more kind of, you know, it's a lot of parity from an evaluation standpoint. You know, it's a lot of kids that are going to get a lot of clout in the recruiting process, but there's some kind of diamonds in the rough that we feel great about from a football standpoint, you know, that now some of those guys are here. We get to see those guys move around. We get to see these guys in mat drills. So we're pleased with the caliber of guys that are just here right now as early enrollees with more guys coming into the fold May, June.
What's the most important thing for you guys in that evaluation sort of standpoint?
For me, like, you got to be tough. You got to be competitive. It's a non-negotiable. I can't put that in you. You know, you got to come to Arizona State already tough and competitive. You know, from a technique standpoint, we can kind of polish guys up. But, you know, the stamp that I want to have in our room as cornerbacks is we want to be a tough, competitive group that's smart, that's scrappy, that's going to be technical every Saturday, every opportunity we get.
How do you evaluate that level of toughness and competitiveness? A lot of times, every guy you're going to recruit is going to say, yeah, I'm tough, yeah, I'm competitive, I can put myself, whatever.
Yeah, it has to jump off the film. It has to jump. Like, when I watch your film, I should be able to tell if you're tough and whether or not you're competitive. When they give us these flights and these rental cars to go see these kids, I feel like when you pat them down, when you get to have a connection with them in person, you can kind of, you know, gauge whether this kid is tough, whether this kid is competitive based on questions that I may ask, you know, and, you know, for the most part, the film is going to kind of give you those questions answered, you know, and then it's the in-person eval as far as his demeanor, what his coach says, what do people around him say, as far as really measuring how competitive the kid is.
Some of those younger corners that you guys have, Rodney Bimage, Chris Johnson, Tony Lewis, and Kuba, what are you looking to see from them in the spring?
Yeah, I want those guys to contribute in some form or fashion. If it's not in the cornerback room, it needs to be, you know, with Coach Regal. So getting those guys to want to be a contributor to the team is important. You know, with Chris Johnson and Tony getting here at 17 years old last year is, you know, it was hard for those guys. But now these guys are first, you know, ideally these guys now should just be entering into college. So Tony is 192 pounds. Chris Johnson is 193 pounds. And both of those guys have a lot more room to grow and to develop and to blossom. So for those guys to have 4 years, you know, in the chamber right now, I'm super excited, super optimistic for those guys. You know, Chris Johnson had moved to free safety, so he'll kind of start off, you know, behind Xavier and Alfred. But, you know, we knew that coming in and recruiting those guys, they had position flexibility. So really pleased with their physical development with Coach Conley being a year now in our program.
What have you noticed about how the perception has changed in the world of recruiting around it?
I feel like last year being able to play in the Big 12 definitely created a lot of visibility for us, you know, in probably the country's most potent regions in that Southeast, especially us making the playoffs. We got an opportunity to cast our net a little bit out wide. We played in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, so a lot of kids on that side of the United States are more hip to Arizona State. You know, even the recruits that we interact with, you know, now it's a lot broader than when we first got here. We kind of first got here and kind of did a little bit locally out west, and then we got into Texas. Now I believe, across the country, there are people that are going to look our way. They're going to inquire. If we show and express interest, those guys have been receptive towards us.
Do you feel like it's easier for you being somebody that's from that southeast usually, or you got to take kind of guys that are more from the East Coast or from the South, those regions?
Yeah, absolutely. I view that it takes one kid to become 13 kids. All it takes is 2 kids from Georgia, and now you look up in 4 years, you got 8 kids on your roster from Georgia. So I feel like, a lot of it is based on who's on your roster. Like, it might be a kid in Connecticut that she grew up a cold, hard Steelers fan, and her grandson plays wide receiver. That gives us an opportunity to feel like there's some variables that we can connect to feel like we got a boxer's chance versus, a kid that has no tie to Arizona whatsoever. In that case, we would want a kid to at least come out here on his own dime, express that interest, show us that it's real for us to allocate resources to recruit those guys. So I just feel like right now we have a huge following in Texas. A lot of Texas kids are appealing towards Arizona State. And even better, when a kid comes on campus, I might be hanging out with Keith Abbott. I might be hanging out with Xavier Alford. I might be hanging out with kids from my city, from my town, against a team that I played with. So the validity of Texas to Tempe is not only real from a marketing standpoint, but every coach, especially starting in 2026, will have a player in his room from the state of Texas. So what bigger selling point than that?
What have you noticed about the change about when you approach a recruit or a high caliber recruit now as opposed to before?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what Coach Dillingham says. Like, we're not going to chase you. We're not going to convince you. We're not going to try to get you to the altar to commit to Arizona State. We want you to not be able to sleep at night because you want to join our family. We want you to be convicted. Recruiting is a lot like dating. I can't show you all of this love and you don't show me love at all. So if I express interest towards you, you got to reciprocate that. I got to feel that as well. Otherwise, transfer portal. It's always going to go that way. So it's like, I recruit a little bit aggressive, but at the same time, I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to send you good morning text if I'm not getting anything in return, if it's not reciprocated.